Welcome to Order Militaris Radio TV. We are back again with Brother Alexis Bonolo. And today's topic is a scary one. May sound like science fiction, but it's real. What is Mkultra? A real mind control program by the CIA that is still going on. There are 2 videos on YouTube still. Can't believe it. The first one is one you must watch, but I caution you. It is not for children and not for those with weak minds, because it gets into some really dark stuff. First one is Out of Shadows documentary. I must say Out of Shadows documentary because there's another program on YouTube called Out of Shadows, which is not what this one does. This one uncovers what is going on in the mass media, Hollywood, the entertainment industry, and in the government. It talks about this CIA program, Mkultra, where it programs the masses. It's very easy to understand in this video. It goes through what they brought into this programming. What do you see? What's your TV called? Television. You turn that television on. What do you see? Channels. What are channels? They're channeling evil spirits. And if you look at the guide, what's it called? Programming. It is programming you. It is desensitizing you to everything going on. Then there's another program on YouTube called The Minds of Men. This one goes with Out of Shadows, but focuses totally on the program Mkultra. Now this one's about almost 4 hours long, this second program. It is just unbelievable what these people were doing and are doing still. How they learn the brain so much that they can turn a human basically into a robot. It shows how this one CIA doctor did this to a bull in Pamplona by putting a computer thing on its head. And when he jumped into the pit where they do the bullfighting, he had a remote control. He could control the bull to stop, to go, to stop. And this is what Brother and I will be talking about. Welcome, Brother Alexis.
Thank you, AJ, for having me on Order Militaris Radio TV, where you hear the truth that you're not going to hear anywhere else. And this is going to be a very interesting program because we're going to talk about a reality that's been hidden from us for nearly 100 years now, 180 years, and how it's made the world so evil.
Yeah. Okay. Let us begin. What is Mkultra?
Well, one of the great things about the Second World War is that we won the war. Meaning we Americans, we won the war, we were on the Allied side. But one of the things that they didn't tell us was that no sooner had Germany fallen that the US military intelligence decided to recruit the entire Nazi spy network. And 2 years later, they put them all together in the same spy agency called the Central Intelligence Agency. From that moment on, the entire Nazi ideology, agenda, politics, psychological manipulation, dirty tricks, and all their wickedness and evil designs entered into the CIA and began to influence the United States. This was, in my opinion, the foundation of the deep state. It was an alliance by the Freemasons under Dulles, who was the head of the CIA, and the Nazis, who didn't like the fact that they were defeated in the war and saw it as a way of winning after the war. A matter of fact, National Geographic, it was like 2 years ago, did a documentary showing the evidence how Hitler most likely did not die in the bunker of Berlin, but escaped out South America, and the US government knew about it and didn't know anything. Well, that seems almost unbelievable, but once you know the CIA was founded by US military intelligence and the Nazi spy work, then you can see why the USA would be quite willing to allow Hitler live without ever being punished in Argentina until about 1963 when he passed away. So we're talking about deep history here of this deep state that you're not going to read in school books or anywhere else. So the Nazis, we have to understand why with this MK Ultra, why this even crazy name. And the Nazi in Germany is the National Socialist Party. Okay, socialists are communists, and they want to take over the state to take over the entire society. And Hitler's socialism was different because he tried to sell socialism to Germans as a way of making Germany great again, because they had lost the First World War. So unlike Marxism, strict Marxism like Lenin Marxism that wants to destroy the nation and destroy its national identity, the Nazis exploited that to mobilize people to accept it, even though in the end they did destroy the nation. Germany lost 20 million men, citizens during the Second World War, so Hitler killed more Germans than anyone else, which is a thing often forgotten. But so the Hitler before he died said, Nazism will return in 100 years as a religion. So we're getting close now to 100 years. 2032 will be the 100th anniversary of the founding of the, 2028, in a few years now, will be the 100th anniversary of the founding of the Nazi Party, although they actually began in 1919. So we need to keep our eyes open because the neo-Nazis are out to rebuild their state and their society, and maybe a different way, but as a religion. So MK Ultra. So once the Nazis were in the CIA, there was like, oh, there's all these things we can do that help US in the Cold War. And one thing is mind control, because Marxism is the fundamental system. Marxism's fundamental approach to information is to lie, to create a whole architecture and world of lies so that if someone buys into it, they can't escape. Because if you can create a whole world of lies and sell it to someone, convince them of it, they are now controlled by you. Even if physically there's no bond, even if they don't know your name, they are now going to be an agent doing what you want them to do. It was the trick of Muhammad when he created the Islamic superstition. It was the trick of Marx in his Das Kapital, and the socialists use it very much. So mind control is two kinds. You can control the minds of individuals, or you can control the minds of the masses. And MK Ultra was a program to control minds, and they did experiments on people. They also influenced Hollywood. So it was a secret program. No one ever heard about it. Its existence was even hidden from the presidents. It was basically a renegade operation, but it's gone on for decades. And it's probably still going on under different names. And we always wonder why the government spends all this money and it disappears and you don't know where it goes. So this is probably the explanation of where it's really going. It's going to the deep state, which is a Nazi state.
Okay. Well, let me ask this. Did the CIA infiltrate the Catholic Church?
Well, we certainly know that Dulles, the head of the CIA, and his brother was Secretary of State, overthrew the governments of Persia, Iran, put in the Shah, and overthrew the governments of Guatemala in 56 and 58. So Pius XII dies in 1958. The Vatican is a tiny little state. It's easy to take over. Did the CIA have anything to do with it? We know that there are serious questions raised by many scholars around the world about shenanigans in the Conclave of '58. It is said that Cardinal Ottaviani was going to be elected, and some force was placed on the College of Cardinals to elect instead John the 23rd, Roncalli. John the 23rd was, I think it's pretty much certain he was under the influence of some spy agency, whether it was the KGB or the CIA, it's not too clear. But from then on, the Catholic Church, the Vatican, has not been acting according to the Catholic faith. It's been attacking everything in the Catholic faith. Every year it attacks more the Catholic faith. And at the present, we can say that the Vatican is 100% non-Catholic. It's a foreign religion. It doesn't represent the Catholic faith at all. And the clergy there are just inveterate liars, absolutely immoral people, greedy, corrupt, and completely sexually perverse. And if they aren't, then you don't know their name. But all the top people, I mean, just the other day, Bergoglio put one of his best friends, who was alleged to be his sexual companion, in charge of all the real estate of the Vatican, even though this same guy is being investigated for corruption and child trafficking in Argentina. So it shows you how corrupt it is. So how is it that the Catholic Church for 2,000 years was faithful to Christ, and all of a sudden, after the election of Pius XII, everything starts going crazy? I think we cannot exclude that the CIA has something to do with it, because we know for certain that when Italy fell in the Second World War, the Allies conquered the Italian peninsula. And it was the American army that governed Italy from like 44 to 46 or 48. So we know that the CIA, without a doubt, was on the ground here in Italy. And we know that they started in Western Europe another secret operation called Stay Behind Network, which infiltrated all the conservative right-wing groups in Europe and said, oh, we have to defend Europe against the communists. And so we're going to fund your little group. We're going to give you arms, weapons. Every once in a while, we're going to ask you to commit a terrorist act, or we want to influence what goes in newspapers, what goes on here and there. But why not influence what goes on in the church? Why not by cardinals, by bishops, by religious orders? I've seen lots of strange things. I've been to a seminary here in Rome, not in Rome, here in Italy. And while I was attending a conference, there comes at a door a young boy. He's obviously some kind of 16-year-old homosexual prostitute. And he's there just to stay the night. And the next day he goes somewhere else. And I've seen this at other monasteries. It's like there's a pedophile network in Italy that moves boys around from monasteries to convents to seminaries. They're always saying they're here to discern their vocation. No, they're there because someone's hired them to sleep with them that night. And we know the Nazis were pedophiles. We know that they're completely immoral. We know that they don't think anything about murdering people, poisoning them, stabbing them in the back, destroying careers, lying about them, throwing prostitutes in the room and then taking photos and claiming the person was in a compromised position. They're completely immoral. So I can't say I have any particular fact saying the CIA is controlling what's going on in the church, but we have to ask, something's going on and someone's behind it. It's not like all of a sudden the devil's ascended from hell and took over the Vatican. There has to be some human agents involved. And who are they? I think the CIA is a prime suspect with the Nazi network, because the Nazis hated the Catholic Church. They wanted to destroy the church, and yet they were destroyed. So there's, some vengeance there.
How has this mind control programming Mkultra used to change how Catholics believe their history and faith?
Okay, so first there's two parts of the program. One was a study of the human mind, the neurology, and this was probably the most evil, malign program that has ever been enacted or run by any entity in the US government. They basically took all the evil scientific methods of the Nazi state, which were used to experiment on human beings. They brought them to the United States and they started secretly putting them into effect. So they cut people's brains open, they stuck wires in, they tortured people for days, weeks, months on end, denying them any kind of sensation, or electrocuting them or drugging them up. some of the people involved were so corrupt that if a wife didn't like her husband, she just said he had a problem. They took him away and he was never seen again. And hundreds of people disappeared and were tortured, and their human rights were violated, and no one has ever been brought to justice. And worst of all, it was done with the taxpayers' money of the United States. And so during these experiments, they found out what parts of the brain with certain chemicals and electronic impulses controlled the human body, and that therefore they could control. So they devised, this research went on, the Rockefellers were involved in it big time. This research went on from the founding of the CIA, and I think it's still going on. And they realized that there are a lot of different ways to control humans. Yes, you can do some with chemicals. Yes, you can do some with electrical impulses in the body, and that's why they want implants. They're pushing, get this electronic implant in you, because they want to start getting the culture to change so that people are willing to have electronic implants in them. They want you hooked up to the net, even if it's right now it's something you can put on your glasses so you can see the internet on your glass. They want it eventually in your head, so that instead of, you think you're getting information from the net, but they're really putting thoughts into your mind. So one of the big, as an anthropologist, I know that one of the biggest ways to control people is to control their culture. And what do you mean by that is, you control all the information, all the art, all the sounds, all the music, all the words that they're going to encounter in their lifetime. And that seems like a big order, but in a modern state, it's not difficult, especially if you have centralized government with almost unlimited funding. So MKUltra funded films in Hollywood. Almost every film in Hollywood that was ever produced about the US military, whether it was a war picture or something like that, all were taking huge sums of money from the CIA, from the NSA, from the government and the US military to present a certain image of the US military, or even to present counter images of the, for example, all those Vietnam films that showed America is wrong and evil, that's also, they were also getting funding. So MKUltra, the documentary Out of the Shadow, you've got to watch that film if you want to understand the level of manipulation that has gone on in Hollywood from the last 70 years. And one thing you now see in Hollywood is it has nothing to do with reality, has nothing to do with morality, has nothing to do with Christianity, has nothing to do with America. They want to completely wash from the minds of the youth all the years that they would spend learning, becoming Americans, Christians, faithful, upright, honest people, learning skills, and put them in an environment where they know nothing of those things which are fundamental to our identity and character of what we learned in my generation. They, MKUltra is undoubtedly behind funding the video game industry, because they want to habituate you to the idea that you could kill an individual or destroy an entire city with a button because you're scoring points. Because they want to make you a Nazi in your entire character, your habits of mind, and even your reactions. And what better than a video game where you go through these mystical worlds and do, and now the video games are full of pornography, heterosexual pornography and gay pornography, because they want to completely break down that young person so that by the time he graduates from high school, he's a Nazi without realizing. And so people should not be surprised why Antifa is on the streets of the United States right now, burning the country down, because they've been made Nazis by the MKUltra objectives in culture for the last 40, 50 years, and in all kinds of popular culture. So controlling what Catholics think, they've wiped out from Catholics any knowledge of history. About any history you're going to ever hear from Catholic is because some Catholic talked about it. People should open up books and read the history of the church, but they've already convinced everyone no longer to read a book, only to read an electronic device. And that plays into their system too, because if you're doing everything electronically, they know exactly what you're doing and what you're listening to. And to get the level of control that's on, I'll tell you, if you're on the internet for 4 hours, 4,000 applets have been downloaded into your computer to track everything you did during those 4 hours and report back, whether it's to the CIA or no, but at least it goes to Google. So tomorrow you're going to see an advertisement on a website you've never been of a product you were talking to your friend about yesterday on Skype, because they're watching everything you do, to know everything you think, okay? And that's one of the long-term objectives of MKUltra and the CIA, is a complete monitoring of everyone so that they can suppress any threat to their Masonic Nazi agenda. So have they gotten us to forget what Catholicism is about? Yeah, I mean, they changed the Mass and they convinced everyone that changing the Mass is okay. It's not okay. They changed catechetics. They got people to think it's okay to change catechism. It's not okay. And now they even changed the Pope, who got rid of Benedict, who's the rightful Pope, and put in this guy who's an absolute raving lunatic of an ecologist, globalist, Marxist, and he's complete sexual pervert. And they think that's okay. So yeah, they're absolutely taking over everything because of this evil intent. And the whole Nazi system is behind it. And they're all behind it. And that's why you find, whether they're open socialists on the left or ultra-rightists on the right, they're all united. And that's why groups, nearly all groups that say the Latin Mass are in communion with Bergoglio, and they won't even question that, because it's two hands of the same organization that's behind both of them.
All right. Here we go. How does the CIA help ISIS? Why has the DHS attacked foreign militaries?
Yeah, so people didn't believe it in the beginning. The accusations, I think, came from Russia and from Syria that CIA was supporting ISIS, funding ISIS. And as the years have passed, it's been proven. The CIA dropped supplies to them, weapons, and gave them money. The Americans who were killed in Libya with the takeover of the compound probably knew about it, and Obama ordered their assassination by CIA operatives who were ISIS agents, so that they wouldn't spill the beans to the American public. And now so many people reported about it, yet Trump still won't prosecute them. There is no justice. So I know a lot of people put hope in Trump, but he's never prosecuted Soros, he's never prosecuted Obama, he's never prosecuted Hillary, and he's never prosecuted the CIA supporting ISIS, who killed hundreds of thousands of Christians and Muslims in the Mideast. So is he your president? Or is he just another figurehead of the deep state? I'm not going to draw your conclusion, you think for yourself, but he's not really helping us. He's not really breaking down the deep state. He seems to just, say he's against it, but he goes along with the flow. So the real truth is much more sinister, I think, and it could be more depressing. We have to understand that God is with us. We're Catholics. Christ is on our side. We have to stop thinking that the state is our salvation. The Republican Party or the Democratic Party is our salvation. The current narrative control organizations are our salvation. And start thinking for ourselves, develop truly independent media, and get back to proposing the Catholic solution for everything, because that is where the salvation is found. It's not in controlled media. This is one of the big problems in the English-speaking world and the Catholic English-speaking world, is almost no media outlets that actually say the truth. We're one of the few Catholic outlets that do. There are a few bloggers here and there, but they're not running TV stations or news outlets. They need to mobilize. But most all of these people are controlled. For example, Steve Skojec, he was a nobody until his friends in Washington, D.C. got him, into the Wall Street Journal interviews, and all of a sudden he started his 1 Peter 5, and he started getting $250,000 a year, and he says it was hard work and good effort and stuff. But he won't tell anyone where that money is coming from. Is that money coming from the CIA? Because he says right at the beginning of his career, I was concerned that people were going to break from Bergoglio because he was a heretic, and I wanted them to understand that we should be opposed to heresy, but not break with Bergoglio. He says that right at the beginning of his career. So that's what 1 Peter 5 is all about. It's not about 1 Peter 5 at all. It's about narrative control. Taylor Marshall, who's very popular, he was an Anglican priest. A year after his ordination as an Anglican priest, and he's married, he's married to a woman, he becomes a Catholic. What's the first job he gets? With the Diocese of Washington, D.C. The Diocese of Washington, D.C. is so far left and so controlled by the deep state that if you got a job with them, that's a black mark. And then he gets a job with EWTN. He gets famous that way. He gets pushed that way. He's Opus Dei. And he will tell you, bold-faced, that the word munus and ministerium mean the same thing. And he doesn't even have a degree in Latin, but he insists that you accept what he is telling you. Talk about narrative control. There's some of the two biggest. You had Catholic Family News, Father Gruner's apostolate. Excellent on Fatima. Father Gruner came out in 2014 and said Bergoglio is not the true pope because Benedict didn't resign. And then he dies, many say under mysterious circumstances. And then the next thing you know, someone wants to give $1 million to the Fatima Center. And after that, Chris Ferrara just flips. And no, Bergoglio is definitely the Pope. And what Father Gruner said just disappears from history. So you gotta open your eyes and see that there are forces controlling the Catholic media in the English-speaking world. And we can't start, just pretending that this is not going on. As for Ordo Militaris, we don't own a gun. We don't have any troops in the field. We don't even own a bullet. We don't even have any paid employees. But I think every month or now, the government has someone pretend to be, he wants to join us, and give me a whole spiel and talk to me for an hour and pump me for information, trying to look for something they can arrest us on. One went so far as to suggest I commit a crime. And when I didn't, he got upset with me. But all government agents, and I don't believe any of them. I guess they think I believe them, but maybe now I publicly say I know they're fakes. And how much money they waste just trying to catch us on something. But meanwhile, they're funding ISIS, killing hundreds of thousands of people in Syria. But we're the threat. Why? Because the agenda is to destroy Christ's kingdom on earth because they serve the devil and they know they serve the devil. And the CIA is a Nazi organization. No one should trust anything. Someone says I've worked for the CIA, run from them. They're absolutely immoral people because if you had a conscience, you would have never been hired, never. And I've met people who say they work from CIA. They are inveterate liars. You can't believe a word out of their mouth. They're absolute psychopaths. So this is the real threat to America. This is the real deep state. We're not talking about Democratic Party is visible, but this is the deep state that's really hidden. And it's in our intelligence agencies. I mean, we have to come to admit it. It's in our intelligence agencies. The CIA needs to be broken up. All the crimes need to be investigated and everyone guilty needs to go to prison for life or get capital punishment. That's the only way America will be delivered from this demon that the Dulles put into the US government. That's the only way. It's a fight. If Americans don't fight this, they will be destroyed by it.
Yes. All right. How bad do you think is the damage caused by the CIA to the church?
It's grave. It's grave damage. I mean, there's so much chaos now in the Catholic Church. It's very difficult for anyone to save their soul because they don't know what's right and wrong. So we're looking at the damnation of maybe 1 billion people because there's only 1.2 billion in the Catholic Church. So these people are really evil. You can't pretend, well, oh, they're Americans like me. That's not what it's out. They're out to kill, destroy, and damn people because all they want is absolute psychopathic, immoral control of everyone. That's what they want. And everything they do is for that purpose. They're just completely immoral people and they want to satiate their evil desires any way they can and when they want. I mean, they'll openly say that on the one hand, you can't leave your house for COVID-19, but on the other hand, if you're out for gay sex, that's fine. That's how the level of these people that they're at. And that's complete Nazi ideology, satanic and demonic. Complete.
Anything else you would like to touch on this topic?
If you want to protect yourself, you must be faithful to Jesus Christ, consecrate yourself to Our Lady, say her rosary every day, and live the Catholic faith. Do never accept the idea that there is any part of life, society, work, or recreation, or of your house, home, or heart, or mind, which should not be imbued by the Catholic faith, where you cannot or should not profess your Catholic faith. Your Catholic faith is the salvation Christ gave to you, and it should color your whole life. You should, if the Catholic faith was a bucket of paint, you should baptize yourself into it and color everything you have in that color. Don't be afraid of that. And one of the real things we need in the United States is a Catholic party. A Catholic party that will change the Constitution, make the United States a Christian nation, and defend and uphold the truths of the Catholic faith. We cannot waste our time anymore with the Republican and Democratic Party because, oh, if you don't vote Democrat, if you don't vote Republican, the Democrats will take over the country. That is a game of theater to neutralize you and to prevent you from restoring the reign of Christ. And if you haven't figured that out yet, you don't have a noodle in your head. But I've been around, I'm 55, 56, I think, on this year. And so I've seen all the tricks played and how they go after it. I remember, I won't forget the election of 2020. I almost voted for president that year. I've never voted for president in my life because I knew they were all liars. But Buchanan ran for office that year, and no one thought he had a chance. But in the primary in New Hampshire, he won by a landslide among the Republicans. Within hours, every media outlet in the country said, "You're a Nazi, you're a racist." They were all united against him. Then all his funders pulled their funding. All the people supporting him said, "I can't support you anymore. I've been told not to by powerful people." And within 48 hours, that was the end of his campaign. He would have been president instead of Bush. 9/11 would probably have never happened because although I don't believe 9/11 was a CIA op, we can't exclude the fact that they intended that, killing all those people just so they could fund the military-industrial establishment because they are that evil. You have to remember the Nazis burned down their own parliament building to justify Hitler's exaltation to the level of the dictator. So they're capable of anything. And
Folks, if you want to hear more of this type of hard-hitting truth that you won't hear anywhere else, please support Ordo Militaris Radio TV by going to ordo-militaris.net. There you can go to the Ordo Militaris Radio store on our Teespring site, buy some merch, and you can also click any of the blog posts, scroll down, and make a monthly subscription. Please do that to help us keep this stuff going. And on our YouTube page, please like, subscribe, and share our shows. And thank you for coming on again, Brother Alexis.
Thank you, AJ. And if there's any investors out there, we really want Ordo Militaris Radio to grow. So Ordo Militaris Inc. is a company can sell stock, and we would really like to start a radio business, having an office station and buy radio stations around the country because the truth needs to get out. And if you love your country and love Jesus Christ, you should realize that we need to start controlling the media. We need a Catholic media that is really influential and really says the truth without any fear of offending whoever. And so if you are an investor, please call our corporate offices, and I'll be very pleased to talk to you in person about investment opportunities with our company.
All right. This is Ordo Militaris Radio TV signing off. Deus Volt.
Deus Volt.